So the
So
opposite side of songwriting is, I feel, studio work, right? Because you create the song and now you have to make it come to life. And so this is where being a teammate is really important, right? Because you have to be on the same page, not just with the players, but with the producers, the engineers. Everybody has to come together in order for the song to kind of resonate the way the writer wants it to do. So how
yeah.
vocal are you in that experience in the studio?
Pretty vocal, but it's super weird just because now I trust my producer. This is our third record we're making together. So she's picking players that are, I mean, the best players in the, I mean, they're the best in Nashville, they're the best in the world, really. And so they always seem to exceed my expectations so much that I don't really have to give any sort of direction beyond the initial and her and I, the way that we make records now is we'll pre-produce the record really hard. So we'll all go to her house and we'll do, 2, 3 days of just getting the songs perfect, the tempo, the key, the words, what we want the solo section to sound like, what we want the feel to be. So then by the time we go into the studio in Nashville, we have one day and we'll track all the songs in one day. And then I'll go back and do vocals later. But, this last time we did 5 tracks, I think, in one day. And it was Fred Eltringham on drums, who's Cheryl Crow's drummer.
Wow,
And,
yeah.
Billy, Billy Justino, who's like, I think he's out with Eric Church right now. I mean, like the best players. And so when I go in and I say, hey, I want this to be modern desert sounding, not super polished, really groovy, these are the songs we'll be playing live, so maybe not a ton of instruments we can't translate.
Right, yeah.
And they go in and they start playing, and you're like, so good. So I'm thrilled, and that's the way I like to do it. I've gone in a couple different studios and kind of tried, and it's not near as fun it's not near as fun for me when I'm not being blown away by the musical talent.
I love how you put that out there too, the translation of studio sound to live stage. That is really, really important to artists, and I think a lot of people lose sight of that. Like, if you're going to put a mandolin into your song and you don't have that in your band, and then the mandolin is kind of the feature of that song, then it's not going to resonate. It's like if you don't have a fiddle in the band and you play Amarillo by Morning in the studio, like it's not going to work live. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a steel player now, which is helping a lot. He can also play a second guitar. We are doing one crazy thing with the new tracks but it was a guy that I met. I'm a part of the Texas Grammy chapter, and I met this guy at this function, and he was so cool. And he plays. His name's Carlos Sosa, but he plays horns for like Jason Mraz right
Yeah.
now. And so I kind of reached out to him. He's gonna put some horns on one track, and maybe only on like half of it. It's gonna be like a moment, but that will be something that for me was worth it, even though I can't do that live. Like I want that person that I know that's my friend, and he's kind of doing me a favor price wise too. So it's like that'll be really fun. But I don't do that very often, and so I kind of keep that in my back pocket.
But people don't realize how much strategy is involved in just putting together music. It's really fun to talk about. Man,
Yeah.
we talked earlier about how dang busy you are all the time, which is just such a blessing that you're here with us today. I can't thank you
Oh,
enough for that and your friendship over the years as well. But I know that you managed to find fun in the chaos as well. I don't know how you do it, because I don't know how you're able to. Because, all right, let me explain. Like, from my perspective, I feel like when I'm on camera in front of a microphone, I have to be an extrovert, right? Like, being an introverted interviewer is not going to work for me at all. I have to take chances. But when I'm not in front of this microphone, I am one of the most introverted people you will ever meet. Like, I just shy away from people. I imagine it's like that for you as well, right? Like being on stage, you're a different person than when you're just chilling somewhere. So, do you have to schedule, almost like internally schedule that me time in order for you to kind of re energize your mental health?
yeah. I mean, we got home from Christmas, which is a lot of people, a lot of things, and I lied to like 10 people and said I had a private party last night that I had to play, so I could stay home by myself because I'll feel the pressure to go out or go, and if I don't if I know I don't want to and don't need to, I will just white lie and turn off all my lights.
Well, not just that, but if you go to a show, then you have to explain to everybody else why you didn't go to their show and you picked this one over that. And like, I know how that is as well. And then, of course, you're Bri Bagwell, so somebody's going to document that you were there, right? So, like,
It's the thing that's been getting me lately. I always have a thing that's been getting me lately, but this one is that they'll come talk to me during a show, and then I get anxiety because everyone's looking at me like I'm the person talking and I'm not talking. And it was because someone tweeted not too long ago, Bri Bagwell's talking at this show, and it was not my fault. And so now I have just anxiety that that's happening at every show, even though that's not, it's loud or whatever.
mm-hmm.
But and then two, you're having to yell to talk, which is not good for my voice. If I'm in the middle of a giant recording project right now, like a side project, we don't have to get into that. But it's like I need my vocal cords at all times, and then if I'm going and I'm drinking and it's not good for my mental health, like you say. And it's crazy because that's not something we could talk about 10 years ago. I feel like now I feel like it's like, hey, I'm socially tapped out. And my best friends are like, yes, girl, stay home. Like, we get it.
I think it's important to talk about because, like, at the end of the day, again, you're Bri Bagwell and people are going to look up to you. A lot of people look up to you. And so being able to be honest, not just with your fans and the people that look up to you, but with yourself, I think is so important as an example. You know what I mean?
Totally. And there's no shame in that. There's like, we think about it a lot, Paul and I, about what has changed. And I think because of social media, everyone knows everything about you. They know everything about my dog. They know everything about my house. They know everything. So there are absolutely zero boundaries with some people, not with everybody, but with some people, there are no boundaries. And I had given my tour manager the night off, and it was Paul and I acoustic. And I was like, we got this, just go home. Cause we were going to be gone for 23 days straight. So I said, go home, pack, rest. We go do the show by ourselves. And it was insane. I didn't have her as a buffer. And by the time I left that show, Paul and I both were like almost shaking because no one would let us walk. No one would let us set up. No one would let us. I mean, it was so wild. So you kind of have to. And by the time the show came, I was so frazzled and people were knocking on their RV, like things. I would never do that to somebody. I would never knock on somebody's door. And then it was just really weird. So we have to make sure that we're still creating healthy boundaries, and that's hard to do, but it's easier when you have a team around you to
and that has nothing to do with feeling entitled either. That's 100% to do with just being human. Like, wanting your personal space when you're a public persona at times is not entitlement. That is just wanting to be human, right? And I mean, people just need to do better, man. They just need to do better.
I can't imagine going to somebody's personal RV and banging on. Or that was so shocking to me. And, and people will kind of defend it. Like, this is what you signed up for. It's like, oh no, I absolutely did not sign up for that. Like that's I'm with the audience. And I actually I'll stay and take pictures. I did for an hour and a half after that show. So it's not to feel like I had to go like pee behind a bush because I couldn't get to the bathroom. Nobody should have to pee behind a bush.
Never. No.
Yeah. I had my days of peeing behind bushes, but I have my own.
It's funny. I interviewed T. Graham Brown a few years ago on his bus in Greenville, Texas. And it was just such a cool experience. But at the end of the interview, he goes, "You know why I like you, Boston?" I said, "No, Tony, I don't." He said, "Because you don't give a flying fuck who I am."
Aww.
And I said, "Dude, you're wearing pants just like me. You have to get up and do your hair just like me. You have the same worries just like me. You're no different than me. It's just people know your name and they don't know mine. That's the only difference, right?"
I love that. People in New Braunfels are really cool. I know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Texas is different.
Yeah, everyone's been really nice. And I don't mind if someone comes up and says hi to us during dinner, but it's very funny because I'll get messages. We saw you guys at dinner and we didn't want to bug you. I'm like, oh, that's so nice. But also that's totally fine, But I can't imagine being super duper famous. I mean, of course I want my career, and I would love to be playing stadiums, and I'd love to be Lainey Wilson. We all would. But at the same time, I can go to Target with no makeup and it's not a big deal. Maybe she can. but maybe someone like
I think
Taylor.
she would probably have to do a little bit more disguising to go to Target, would be my guess. Not to
Yeah.
mention, if she opens her mouth, you know who that is. Like,
Yeah.
with that accent, right? So I want to talk about the rescue a little bit more, your dog Whiskey, and more importantly, the charities that you are a profound supporter of through finding this rescue. I know Whiskey has changed your life. I'm talking about the dog here, not the bourbon.
Yeah. If you could see her, she takes up half of my office chair. There she sits behind me. Look at that. Is
Of
that not
course, yeah, that's
so
awesome.
I only get like this much of the chair and she gets this much of the chair. But yeah, I found her in the middle of the road in 2019. So I'll have her for 6 years in February. So
Wow.
she's only about 7 or 8. But she goes everywhere with me. She goes on stage with me. But my friend Helene Cronin came down to write songs with me in New Braunfels, and we weren't even planning on writing a song about my dog. And I told her, I was like, I've been trying to write a song about Whiskey, and every time I try, I start crying because I love her so much. And she ended up writing that song with me, and it's a different kind of song because it's not like who rescued who. It's more, I know that she rescued me, and I'm just so thankful for that. And it's been a lot. We've raised over $7,000 this year for 2 local dog shelters, and then I just played another benefit for the Kerrville Pets Alive, which I'm going to start donating some sales to them too. So I keep meeting these people, and I keep.
If you could if you could email me some links to those
Yeah,
three, so I can add them to the description below for folks.
sure.
That would be awesome. I would love to put that in there.
Mhm.
So that's the rescue, and I want to talk about "Don't Tell Daddy" too, because kind of indirectly, this involves Whiskey as well, because Whiskey ran for president, so we all know that you were telling people to vote for Whiskey. In "Don't Tell Daddy" about it, right? To tell the truth.
Yes. Well, yes. So I think that my dog would have made a great
I
president.
agree.
And I think, what's weird is I wrote this song a long time ago, and it's about voting differently than your husband. And then it kind of became the message for both presidential candidates, which was super weird because I wrote this a long time ago, like
Yeah,
I had no idea. And so I got kind of hateful messages from both sides of the
of
aisle.
course
And
you
I was
did.
and I was like, I'm just telling people to vote for my dog. I just think that we were all a little tense, and I thought it was a good time to just be like, hey, my dog's running for president. And here's a song about voting the way you want to vote, which I think is an important message. And, I'm not saying to vote for anybody. I was just saying use your own opinion. And it's a timeless message, which is what I want to do when I leave the earth. I want to be like, I put down a song that was a lasting
I
message.
think people are so confused by what would the word be, nonpartisan, right? Like center, like don't care one way or the other. I think people get confused by that. I truly do.
Yeah.
Because we all have our biases. For me personally, my biases involve sports and only sports. I don't know why, but when it comes to everything else, I can think objectively. But when it comes to sports, I will literally die with the Patriots and the Red Sox, no matter what they do. They could literally set a damn church on fire, and I'd be like, yo, come on, that was not that big a deal. Right, but
Yeah.
it's just sports for me. It's so weird. So, like, I understand the political divide and understand how people can be kind of divided by those biases. But when
Mhm.
somebody comes along with something that's meant to be center and to make people think, the fact that you get blowback from that from both sides is a
Yeah.
good sign. That is a good sign.
Yeah. Well, I'm also a businesswoman. Like I walk the fence line where what somebody said it. You walk the fence where you can see both sides or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yep.
I don't care if people put out their political views as artists. Like that's their
Mm-hmm.
prerogative. Like good for you. I choose not to. So it was funny to get blowback when I was like, oh wait, but oh, okay.
It's like I didn't say who to vote for here, guys. Like,
And I also said to vote for my dog. And
yep,
look how cute she is. She would make a great
I
president.
wrote her in. I'm not gonna lie.
I know. She got 3 votes. Me, you, and her dog dad.
Her dog dad, that's right. So I noticed, I'd be remiss without saying this. Like I said, my nickname is Boston Chris. So I am originally from Boston. And I know it was a big deal for you recently. You just did a show in Boston for the very first time. I got to say, from being from there, it's not exactly a country hotbed. So to get invited to play up there is humongous in my eyes. That had to be an experience for you, though. What was the crowd like up there?
Okay, well, it wasn't super packed, but the people that were there like knew a lot about Texas music and had been to Key West, had been to Steamboat, had been to festivals. They follow the charts. But I had an incredible time in Boston. That city it was amazing. It was beautiful. I haven't got to walk around a lot. I got to walk around by myself a lot before. Everyone was incredibly kind. We got to eat an amazing lunch the next day. So I loved it, and I think I'm gonna get to go back. So they
Nice.
didn't hate me, so I'm gonna get to go back maybe in the spring.
I was
So
so excited for you, man. I was showing my wife. I was like, Bri's playing in Boston. I love this so much.
should have
Um,
reached out. That was the run that I did. It was 22 shows in October in 12 different states.
yeah.
So I had gone. My cousin showed up to my show in Maryland, and she was like, I mean, she didn't say it, but I could imagine maybe she might have been a little bit offended. I didn't tell her that I was there, but I was like, oh, I don't even know where my shoes are. Like we were driving through the night. Like it was wild. It was just my tour manager and I, and then we drove through the night to get on a plane to play Boston,
Yep.
New York, Pennsylvania, rent the car. Like it was just it was wild
That's
time.
so
So
cool, man. So cool.